Welcome everyone. What we have for today on this reset day, at least in EU, is a PSA. It's a warning, but also hopefully some help to some players in making everyone aware that when you're playing this game, you're not just usually playing with your eyes. There you go. You're also playing with your ears. That's what I mean by what we're going to be looking over at today, which is the amount of things that can help you throughout whether it is a raid or a Mythic Plus key or a dungeon. Because, of course, when you are trying to play, you might get to sort of overload yourself with info on your screen. Maybe you even play with a combat text, so now you have combat text flying around, you have icons of the enemy mechanics, bars of enemy mechanics, your own abilities, you have buffs to keep track of, you have affixes to keep track of, you have a series of things showing up in your screen. Now, most of the time, many of these things you won't even realize, you won't even pay attention to because you are simply focused on other things. When we had our video on what to do on how to improve your performance in the raid or in Mythic Plus, in things to keep track of, was the fact that one of the most useful things would have been to just pick up one of your recordings, if you can record yourself, and then look it back. Because this allows you to see all the stuff you have on your screen, all the stuff that's flying around in terms of information, in terms of details, like mechanics, warnings. Maybe you don't want it here in the middle of the screen, maybe you want it here, maybe you want it much bigger here. What about all of the warnings from bigwigs over here? Are you even noticing them, or are they just a hindrance in the middle of your screen? What about the combat text? Is this too much? Is this just spamming your screen too much? For example, all the amount of mechanics and infos that shows in your screen, one of the easiest ways to notice what you are paying attention to is to watch a recording of yourself. Now, many of those things that pop on your screen are of course things you have to pay attention to with your eyes. However, when it comes to senses, us humans also have another one that can come quite in handy when playing the game, which is our ears. That's right. Something that is quite often used to listen to music, listen to podcasts, to some Twitch streams, maybe even some YouTube videos. Basically, white noise, background noise, you just play in the other monitor, for example, as you're doing something in game. Those ears can actually still be used to something useful in game, which are the audio cues, the sound warnings for many mechanics or many abilities you want to keep track of in game. You are definitely already used to sound cues because bigwigs or DBM have been using sound cues since basically almost the start of this game. If you just have to point out one random sound cues to drive the point home, here it is.
Run away, little girl. Run away.
So everyone is aware that these type of things actually are available in game. However, there aren't many of them. Many of these mechanics will follow with these type of alarms. However, what is way more in depth and can help you much more become aware of certain mechanics is by going through weak auras, and in our case, go through the dungeons, Mythic Plus dungeons. Now, the weak aura in question is the DF Dungeons weak aura pack from Causes, which also has an extra, a shared media extra add-on you have to install in the game, which gives you even more sound effects, even more audio cues for you to choose from. And you can find them quite easily in here, right? The difference between the white type of sounds, which are the default ones from the game, or the extra ones that you automatically have installed through DBM or through bigwigs, like these for example. And then you have the red ones, which are the ones installed through the Causes shared media pack. These will be more specific things like, for example, stack, split, spread, soak, CD, or reflect, range, push, right? Phases, different phases. You also have things like interrupt, things like immunity. You also have things like countdowns you can use with this aura, as well as different markers being said out loud for you to realize about them. So all of these things can become quite useful because in a Mythic Plus key, for example, there is a lot of things you have to keep track of. Your own position, the enemy positions, the stuff on the ground, flying around. You have your own mechanics, your own abilities and cooldowns you have to keep track of. So sometimes it can get quite handy to be able to have multiple weak aura messages to tell you what's going on. in your ears rather than in your eyes. Obviously, the spread mechanic, the dread mark mechanic of the Triad boss in Waker's Manor will show up as an icon. You will get a big purple circle around you, but those are for your eyes. Maybe you were looking at the bosses, maybe you were looking at the guy that was being mind controlled in the fight, and you sort of skipped the fact that this was about to be cast. Now, with this weak aura, you also have the sound, you have the warning that you have to spread, for example, for this specific mechanic. We can jump over to something like the Era Bloom, and now you have something like Noxious Eruption, a very dangerous AoE mechanic. Maybe you're pulling 15 mobs, you have 2 of those fuckers that are trying to charge at you, so you're focused on reading the cooldown on their ability to know when you have to try to dodge it, right? Maybe you even have Sanguine, you are trying to skip past, maybe you're running away from a spiteful mob, maybe you're a healer and you're looking at the frames to heal, so you sort of miss out on this mechanic being cast. You're gonna have the warning in your ears that this is about to come, and you have to be aware of this mechanic, so that as soon as the mechanic is being cast, so you have a few seconds before the mechanic actually lands, you will get the warning that the AoE is coming. Same goes for something like lower down, something like the special compression, the bait, the suck in and bait mechanic of the third boss in Era Bloom. You have the target, if you are the one, of course, being targeted by this. And you could be like, well, but how can I possibly ignore this if it's a big, glowy icon in the middle of my screen? You will be surprised by how many things you miss that happen in the middle of your screen because you're busy looking at other things. This one, though, can help you be aware of what is happening because it will go straight to your ears and bypass all of the clutter that's happening in the middle of your screen. Now, this won't just be helpful for enemy mechanics, enemy abilities, things to keep track of in that sense. It can also be very useful for your own abilities in case you weren't using this before. For example, I have my own cooldown here for my Power Shield. I also have Doom cooldown pulse to make it pop up in the middle of my screen when the cooldown is over. However, this can go missing. This can go missing amidst the 50 different things that are happening inside of the game, right? So you can edit your own abilities, your own mechanics that you want to keep track of. Let's say, even without using something with such a short cooldown like Power Shield, you're a DPS, you look at your own logs, you look at your own performance, and you figure out that certain abilities you're not using as often. So what you can do is you go to, for example, Mind Blast, your main nuke mechanic. You go into conditions, add a condition, and it's going to be if the ability on cooldown is false, so if the ability is available, then play a sound. Play it, use the master sound channel, and then play something like, what do we want here? We want exit, knock, pots, what do we want? Nuke is fine. Yeah, we're gonna use nuke. Nuke. Right? So nuke. Now, as soon as I murder this rabbit, I'm sorry rabbit, but once the cooldown is back, I'm busy doing other things. I'm using my rotation, I'm casting other things, I am dodging mechanics, you know, I'm just busy, right? I'm busy with other things, and then I will be told with my ears, through my ears, that this ability is back on cooldown. That is what can also be in handy to make yourself more aware of things happening in your game, because it bypasses the visual clutter of your eyes. From your own mechanics to the boss mechanics, weak auras, bars, warnings in the screen, combat text scrolling around. These type of warnings can go straight through your ears and be more easy to recognize, to be aware of. That is why it can be quite useful for you to sort of set up a system, whether it is from your own abilities you want to keep track of, or for the enemy mechanics, whether it is through the dungeon weak auras or the raid weak auras, to make more dangerous mechanics or more important abilities also show up in your audio cues rather than just your video cues. That's today's PSA for all players, especially the ones that have already trouble keeping track of everything being plastered on their screen when it comes to information. Now, you can also be made more aware of this, of all of this info being thrown at your character through your ears, not just through your eyes. That's today's PSA on this Wednesday. I am, of course, leaving behind down in the description the link to the Dragonflight Wikora, but also to the shared media pack you need to install as an add-on to get all of the extra audio effects for you to put in the game as a warning for your mechanics or your abilities. So, with this out of the way, thanks of course as usual for all of the Patreon supporters for the contribution and the help to the growth of the channel, which can as usual still be given completely for free. Thank you guys for watching, see you guys tomorrow, and in the meantime, I'm sorry, by the way, I'm sorry for the wetlands to come in here and genocide their entire wildlife population, but it had to be done for science.